Today, I'm beyond excited to have a good friend of mine on the show, Liz Long. I've been able to watch from afar to see her journey from launching her own product from scratch that quickly started scaling and selling to Fortune 500 brands like Goldman Sachs, to now co-founding Nearshore, which is Nearshored AI. Liz is a true product whisperer. She's helped thousands of founders go from idea to reality to actually make their product. From figuring out the tech specs to make a product, finding manufacturers, to doing fulfillment without losing your shirt. If you are someone that is interested in learning how to turn your idea into a real product that you can actually ship and make money from, this episode is for you. Liz shares her own story of building a product and scaling it, the 3 steps she uses to help founders do it the right way, and advice on if she were starting today, the products she would be building and selling. So really hope you enjoyed today's episode. I actually learned a lot from it, and I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Liz. All right, it's finally happening. Liz and I have been working together for a while now. We've been talking a lot. Every time I talk to her, I'm like, man, I need to get her on the podcast. And I'm fortunate enough to work with a lot of people that also work with Liz. And I don't think I've ever had so many people come to me and be like, man, I love working with Liz. And so in the referral game that we are in, it's very impressive. But Liz, what's up? It's happening. It's finally real.
Thank you for having me. It is a pleasure.
Yeah. And so we're going to get into your background. We're going to get into what you've done, but I'm just going to jump into it. Liz, I want to make a brand. I want to make sweatproof t-shirts. I want to make athleisure. I've got the lightning in a bottle idea. I woke up, I have the next great idea, but I've never manufactured anything. I start going to Google. I'm going to Perplexity. Help me out, because I know you meet a lot of people at this phase. What are the things to start to do when you want to go down this path of turning your idea into an actual product?
Okay. So you need to think of it in terms of like a 3-part journey. Okay. And the first part of that journey is you need a product design. So for sewn goods, that's a pattern. For hard goods, it's a tech pack. There's all sorts of kind of design files that are required. But before you even are ready to go to a factory, you need that design in place to specify what you're making, right? So it might sound obvious, but most people need someone to help them kind of execute that part. So that's number one you need to start thinking about. The second part is the way a supply chain works is it's not that you go to a factory and just press a button and your t-shirt comes out fully made, right? Like they have to get the fabric from somewhere. They have to get the labels from somewhere. They have to get all of that stuff. And in order to do that, you have to have specified, well, I like this type of fabric and I like these type of labels. So your materials and your components and kind of where they're coming from is the second part of your journey. And then the third part is the one that most people think about first, which is who's going to assemble that, put it together and ship it to you, right? But there's kind of earlier stages. And so I always tell people to start with the end in mind. It's okay to go out and look for that end factory first, right? Start searching for the factory that makes the t-shirts. But you will likely have to kind of retroactively go and fill in some of those other components, right? So when you go to the factory, they might say, great, well, send me over your tech back, send me your patterns. And you might say, okay, well, can you help me with that? And they could say yes or no, right? Different factories provide different services, but it's important that you know up front that you're not usually just going to one partner and having them do it all. Now, there's always exceptions to that. There are certainly factories that have a lot of kind of in-house services to support brands with everything that I just said. That can be more expensive, right? Because you're not usually going direct to the source for each of those items. They're kind of being contracted or outsourced. But for some people who have a lot of time on their hands or, have more money than time, they sometimes are okay with that. And some factories do a really good job of kind of like they're vertically integrated. They do kind of all in one solution. So no hard and fast rules, but that's like kind of the mindset you need before you head out there.
Okay, let's start with that first phase. Should I go on Fiverr and find someone to do my tech pack? Or like you said, someone could be vertically integrated doing that. What are some like advice you would give? Because I'm sure people come to you with all different budgets on like, hey, I got to be super scrappy, or they're like, hey, I'm willing to invest here. I know it depends. What are some things to watch out for? Because I equate it to us. We build websites, and sometimes people will like overspend on branding, overspend on components that yes are important, but not at this phase. And if anything, it's you're taking up too much time and resources in
Hmm.
that. Basically, advice on that MVP for that first phase. And I'll let you kind of choose your own adventure because you do a lot of things from knitwear to hardware to cosmetics to home goods. Um, Kind of help give some experience shares on that first phase.
Yeah, I can speak about it generally because really the same rules apply. So the 5R type designers, of course, you're going to have unicorns that are wonderful. There's lots of talented people there. I tend to want to use those types of resources when you just need an image to start going out and talking about your product with people,
Mm.
talking about designers, getting kind of preliminary yes, nos from factories. Sometimes, if you don't have any sort of sample or it's a really novel item, just having someone like mock something up, do a simple rendering, a sketch can just really save you a lot of like time and make your life easier. So almost like a pre-design phase that can be helpful and inexpensive. When it comes to actual product design, I wouldn't. It's something that I would A, spend money on, and B, I would get a personal referral. It's one of the only ones like I wouldn't pull it out of thin air. It tends to be the most expensive part of the process, and so if you mess it up, it's like it's not great. Um, and you want someone who's experienced designing for production. So a lot of the people on maybe aggregate websites aren't working they're like churning out designs. They're not working day in and day out with factories. And so you can imagine if you design something that's not really production friendly, then you're just going to have to do it again also. So, so yeah, that's kind of my general recommendation there. There's a hack that I do like to use if you don't have some invention, right? You're not some like complicated medical device or wearable, but even if you do, if you can go out and find a product, maybe it's a product that an existing factory makes that you're already talking to, or just something that you found that you can use as your like preliminary design, like grounding your design, right? And so you're taking this product and then you're just changing, making this a little shorter, changing the color. You're making your own, but you have a starting place that really will save you a lot of time and make your design costs less expensive because you're just not reinventing the wheel. It's like with everything else you do. So if that's possible in your product category or with your idea, I really suggest doing that. And again, that's why it's great to start with the end in mind because sometimes factories have already made the item that you're making, right? I was just talking to a fitness person making like a weighted, accessory for working out. So I suggested they go to factories that have already made these and see what they can change about what's already being done, what they can improve instead of just totally starting from scratch because the factory will make it a lot easier. All the materials are kind of sourced and you're just tweaking them. It's just a lot better.
That's a really good point, especially when we're thinking of that second part, supply chain and eventually scale. Like starting from scratch, yes, you could have the great next big idea, but usually it's a derivative of something that exists. So leverage what is out there. So you're like, all right, I get the tech pack, I get the product design. You've invested it the right way. You've done it through the referral. Now you're trying to find an a supply chain partner. And this for me can be very overwhelming because I want to be like boots on the ground and see these facilities, but that is really time consuming and expensive to do that. Give us some do's and don'ts on how to approach that decision.
Yeah. So, well, first, it's kind of where to look, and you can do it a lot of different places. You can just plain old Google. You can go on sourcing websites. Obviously, Nearshore, which we run, I would suggest you try. But there's different resources that you can use to go find suppliers. So that's number one. Um, when you are thinking about if they are a good partner, the truly the number one thing, and this is going to sound obvious, but you'd be amazed how how people don't do it. Like, have they made a similar item to what you're making? Have they made a very similar item? Because factories can make a lot, right? They'll say they want the business. They'll say, yeah, we can figure out how to do that. We can make this. Even when it comes to t-shirts, right? So if you're making like a high end, a certain type of t-shirt, and you go to another factory that makes t-shirts, but they just pump them out all day long for really kind of low end, low cost things, they're going to have a harder time executing on the type of stitching, finding the right fabric, like doing all the things you want for that higher end t-shirt. It's just, there's going to be a learning curve. It's going to be hard for them to do what you want. So you really want to find a partner who's done almost identical, an identical to product to what you're doing. And I don't mean the same, I mean like the type of product, right? The kind of price point, the complexity, the type of, if it's apparel, the type of stitching, if it's something else, the type of assembly. So that's really something you want to look for. Price, obviously you'll go and compare price. Being able to visit. So What you want to say to factories is you always want to ask them if you can visit, right? Anyone who says no is an immediate disqualifies. You might not go, but at least you've opened that up. Also, I think people are unaware that there are very affordable kind of quality control agents out there that exist in every country. And so their job is to go in and check your products in a factory, once you've produced them, hopefully before you ship them, and give you a quality report. What they will also do is go do site visits for you. They'll take pictures. They will like look at equipment. They'll tell you the cleanliness of a factory. You can tell a
Mhm.
lot by the cleanliness of a factory. It's like a restaurant. They'll do all kinds of things, and so that will cost you a couple $100. So for you, for a lot of people that can be really helpful if they're like down to one or two
Mhm.
factories and they want to decide. So that's another kind of tool in the toolkit.
I did not know that existed. That's very helpful. So I know some other people like, okay, wait, do I make this made in the USA? Do I go to China? Do I go near shore? Because there's lots of benefits with that. How should I balance that decision as someone that's starting to build and scale products?
Okay, so I would say three main kind of decision making criteria. One, if you're making something in very low volume, you most likely want to stay domestic if you can, because overseas factories, particularly those in Asia, have they're just higher volume. They have higher volume requirements. That's not across the board. There's some that don't, but like if you are making 50 t-shirts, I would say it would just kind of make sense for you to work with a domestic factory. So kind of quantity is a first filter. Where your product category is produced in the world, there are manufacturing centers around the world, right? If you are making really cheap plastic toys for kids, it's going to be hard for you to do that outside of China. Not to say you can't find it, but like that's just what they've excelled on. And there's lots of examples. We could go all around the world and give examples of that. So you do want to pay attention to kind of where the concentration of suppliers and the specialization of your product category is. And then the third thing is value system. So some people come in and they're like, my customers are going to want like a made in Italy scarf or bag. So that's just where I need to be. And for those people, it's a simpler decision.
That's very, very helpful. And one thing that I'm also thinking through as you're like trying to figure out where to make it, it's funny going from running an agency to having a e-commerce company that sells actual products. The lead time and the skill of forecasting and inventory management is very new and a little foreign to me. And so for me, I'm very much about like production time, turnaround time, because obviously as you go overseas to China, you got like the Chinese New Year. If you ship it on a boat, it takes a lot longer. And you just have to be really good at knowing your customer and predicting the future, which can be really tricky when you're just getting started. Because even last year with meat, we really missed out on some big opportunities because we underinvested in inventory. Our peak season, we were out of inventory for 45 days, and that was a tough pill to swallow. Any feedback there on, is that just the nature of the beast, understanding turnaround time and
It
inventory
is.
management?
I would say if it's a kind of an evergreen product that you're going to keep in stock, right? If it's something limited edition or you're not really sure it's going to sell, you never want to overinvest in inventory. But if it's something you know is going to sell, sometimes it can be a good idea just to like stock up on it. And you just make that call and you can work with the factory to give you terms, right? That's when you start to ask for terms from a factory. So terms being they don't charge you up front, right? They might give you 60 days, 90 days from when it ships. So it doesn't eat up all of your inventory. You have that negotiation power with factories after you're placing consistent orders. No one's going to do that in the very beginning. They might not even do that in the first year, but like they will over time, especially in today's world. It's getting very competitive out there. The manufacturing landscape is changing. Factories I've seen they're like absorbing tariffs for customers, like splitting the cost of new tariffs. They're doing all kinds of crazy things. So it doesn't hurt to ask. And if they are willing to do that, it means that you're not, putting so much cash up front, which is the issue. And I think that can be a good idea.
Okay, let's talk about terms and hacks around maximizing your cash flow. For example, with me, it's like, okay, what are the terms? When can we pay? How can we push off this payment to when it ships or when it arrives? We're looking at interest-free credit cards. We just got one that we're looking to max out. We're getting to a point where we can talk to like Shopify Capital and things. But my goodness, the e-commerce game is inventory dependent and cash flow dependent. What advice would you give when things start to take off and people are making money, but they're like, wow, I have to reinvest all this in inventory? Any other advice or hacks?
Yeah,
And
I
maybe it's,
I like the factoring model that a lot of the newer startups are doing, right? Where they're kind of fronting you the money for inventory and you kind of pay back as you sell. There's different ways
mhm,
they do it. And you can really shop around at the rate they're giving you because there's a lot of them now. Um, so you can, it's almost like a credit card. You can negotiate with them a bit more than they might like list. So I think doing that is a good idea. I've seen people do creative things too. Like they'll almost do this with friends and family. They'll like raise money with friends and family to pay for inventory and then pay the money back plus a percentage of the sales. Just do like creative stuff like that to kind of get, when they're in that growth phase. So the easiest thing is to negotiate with your factory, like I just said. And factories they will do it, especially if you really threaten to kind of walk away.
mhm,
I guess I'll say two other things. You talked about lead times before. It can be a really good idea to have either a backup factory or a second factory who's
mm,
like producing at it. Maybe their minimums are a bit lower, their lead times a bit faster. Maybe your margins are lower with this other factory, but they can turn around stuff in 2 weeks because they're based in Colombia and not, halfway around the world. So you're like, know what? We'll get inventory. Our margins might be slimmer on that, but who cares? It's at least we have something to sell. And so
yeah,
thinking creatively like that, especially not every product is easy to duplicate in two different factories at the same time. It can be a headache, but some people's are, right? It's like you have to just sample and get set up, but once you're set up, you can do it. I sometimes will suggest that people import some of the materials from their other factory or from their other supplier and
mm,
just ship to two locations because then you ensure the product is really consistent, right? Materials are what make a product feel different. It's not the construction, the consumer's not going to notice usually, right? Like if it's not drastically different. So that can be a good way to have one supplier for your materials and then you're sewing or you're assembling in different places to kind of give you flexibility. So that can be definitely a hack. And the other thing, like even beyond just the growth phase, when you're first starting out, the most vulnerable place on your entire journey, okay, is when so you've usually paid a deposit to start production, right?
yeah,
You don't want to pay 100% upfront ever. Any factory that asks you that, you should say no to. So they want typically the rest of their payment before they ship all those goods to a brand new customer. They're not
mhm,
usually going to extend any trust there. So you have to be paid 100% upfront before they release them. So at that juncture, you're very vulnerable because if those products are damaged in any way, are not right, and you ship it all the way around the world, what are you going to do? Send it back? I mean, at that point, you have no leverage with them.
mhm,
Would be very expensive to send it back, but they're also like, why would they help you? They might
yeah,
not, and especially if you're angry and something's gone wrong, they're like, okay, we'll leave this one. So at that point, you really always want to have the negotiating power and never have paid. I would never pay more than 50%.
mm,
Because what you do at that point is you send in one of these quality control agents for like $300 or whatever it is. They give you a very detailed report about, your whole production. And then you use that report to make any corrections because you have leverage with making your payment. So
yeah,
it's a really important thing that I would get a lot of nightmare calls over the years, and that would always be the issue. If someone had done that, they would have avoided it. And listen, at that point, even if something's gone horribly wrong, you've lost 50% of that cost, not 100, which is a
yeah.
far better scenario.
Yeah, especially at that phase because it's so fragile when you're getting that first kind of batch after the prototype. So yeah, that's
Yeah, it
really
is.
good.
And like, listen, let's say the inspection team goes in and they're like, everything's really bad, but we found 200 good pieces that we can send you. Then you're like, okay, to the factory, I'm not paying you for more than 200 pieces. I'm assuming
Hmm.
my deposit already covers that. Ship them, and so it's just a smarter, better way to do things. But you need both the payment terms in your favor and a quality control check. Like you have to do that.
Yeah, that quality control agent I think is everything. Um, And let's talk about that final mile, that third piece of, okay, who's going to assemble this and how do we ship this to your warehouse or ship directly to customers that using ShipBop, or like any advice on that final mile component?
Yeah. So I have seen a lot of factories in the United States that have extra space. Either they kind of downsize when everything went overseas, start to do more fulfillment. And I really like it because I have had not the best experience with some of the larger fulfillment centers. They lose
Yeah.
things. They're not like, let's say you have some marketing campaign, you want to send product out to you. They're just not very friendly. They charge you for everything. You label something wrong and you get charged. It's just like annoying. Now, at a certain level, it's a bit hard to get around that. But for people who are still growing, and I'm happy to give referrals to people and email me afterward. But like, there's a lot of great options with factories who have the inventory storage and are doing fulfillment in a really good way, but still a bit of a mom and pop touch. So I've
Yeah.
just like loved seeing that pop up. Like it's their way of getting creative and kind of competing with some of this overseas and getting a new revenue stream. So I really like that. Um, in terms of who should ship your product, I tend, for ease, to like to ask the factory if you're producing in a different country, just ask them who they normally ship with and
Mm,
give you a few options. Sometimes they have one shipping agent, sometimes they have a few because they're just already used to picking stuff up. You can get comparative quotes. It just like makes your life a lot easier. So
yeah.
kind of the least friction, way to do it.
Yeah. Especially with that person supply chain. If they're a trusted partner, you can use someone that they also trust, which is
Yeah.
nice. Um, So, Liz, you talk to a lot of founders, inventors, you see a lot of things. I'm interested to see what you believe is kind of trending or interesting right now, because you have such a unique perspective that a lot of people don't, from fashion to apparel, cosmetics, and hardware. What are some categories where, if you were like starting it all today, you would be interested to go down? And what are some that you're like, oh my gosh, those are a little played out, I wouldn't do that? And where does rucking vest sit in the middle of all this?
That's a good one. As a fitness enthusiast, I like that one. Um, I have seen all the trends. Like I saw the athleisure trend come. I've seen lots of them over time. I'll tell you what I'm seeing now. It's not directly answering your question, but I like it. So, because of the rise of kind of like everyone being an influencer, a lot more people having smaller audiences, kind of this like micro celebrity and having like your people in your corner, you just see a lot of products that are more specialized. So, like I was just speaking with a fashion person and she's making like pants and jeans for women under 5 feet. Okay. So, like, it's not a huge percentage of the
Yeah,
population, but when I looked around, no one's doing it well. She has great design. She has a ton of marketing experience. So, like it's just, she won't have everyone as her customer, but like the people who want like a stylish, fashion forward option and are under 5 feet tall are going to love her. Right. So
yeah.
I like to see like everyone kind of finding their tribe in that way. And
Mm.
that is just kind of heartwarming and it also works.
I actually think that's the best advice you could give, is like trying to start out and be everything to everyone. You'll just be in the sea of sameness. I mean, we see it with our clients at Growth Hit. Like, the riches are in the niches. We have a company that does pajamas for pit bulls, and they absolutely crush it. And it's like, wait, that's a business.
I know them. Shout out to, I won't say that here right now. Yeah. Yeah, we helped launch them from the very
Yeah.
beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yep.
all because of you. I mean, that they're amazing, and so yeah,
They
there's lots
sell
of,
really well. Like they do amazingly. That is a perfect example.
yeah, and so I think that's really helpful. I think for people that are that are starting out, it's like, where is there a category where there's high demand but they're being underserved? Like, I was in the early days of Universal Standard, before kind of plus size fashion really blew up. Universal Standard was like, 70% of women are this size, but if you go down Fifth Avenue in New York, no one's catering to them. And a lot of people have jumped on that bandwagon as well. But those underserved categories with high demand and where people are price insensitive, they have money to spend. I think that's a really exciting kind of Venn diagram to lay out.
Yeah, the other one that's a little harder to execute, and I guess you could argue it's getting played out, but I still really like it. Like I love the drop model. When like
Yeah.
new prints and stuff are dropped, like I was just on the phone right before it came, like I got the text message, I added to cart. Like It's just fun. And if you have an audience and you can kind of master that excitement and turn stuff around quickly, it's hard. Everyone kind of wants to do this one, and I would say fewer people succeed. But when it works, it is just really like a fun thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember like Guilt in the early days doing like the drop model. Man, that worked so well. Like people would be waiting at noon whenever like they would launch all of their stuff. So very cool. Um, so Liz, you're this wealth of knowledge. Like let's go back to like early Liz. Like how did all of this get started?
So when I was very young, Jim, probably 20, 21, I started a company that manufactured reusable shopping bags. So, you see them everywhere now, but at the time there wasn't a one really in the United States. Like they just weren't here. And I'd been on a trip to London, my dad's British, and I had seen everyone using them. And I was kind of like, oh, I feel like people would do that in the United States. So I came back and I searched for a factory and I found one and put up like a really simple website. And for some reason, I guess like the search took off, right? Because there just wasn't a lot of other options. And so what happened is we had all of these like huge companies, because the trend did start to pick up, messaging us saying like, oh, we want, 50,000, 100,000
It's like a
bags.
B2B play. People are
Yeah,
buying
yeah.
it for like
So we sold
Trader
direct to
Joe's.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
sold direct to customer as well, but that did decently. But really, it was the kind of B2B orders where they would just want it for like all their stores in the continental US, and so
Oh my gosh.
it was exciting. And I didn't know what I was doing at all. So our very first order was from Goldman Sachs,
What?
and
How about social proof?
and so, but like I didn't even know how to like do a FedEx delivery. Like, so I had gotten everything shipped to me. So I got, I got my boyfriend at the time to dress up like in a delivery outfit. And we like
Yeah.
took all the boxes and like made them look official. And like he brought them to like the lobby of Goldman
Are
Sachs.
you
Like,
kidding me? Oh my, are you like going to the Halloween shop to buy this
but
outfit? That's
well, listen,
amazing.
I feel like people are savvier now. Right? I'm 41 now. So it was like we were one of the first Shopify stores. It was like pre all of this stuff where like everyone knows. So anyway, so that kind of took off, but I had a lot of challenges. So we just had a lot of manufacturing challenges, and in that kind of business, so the customer was paying us a deposit, and then we'd have to go and manufacture everything, and they weren't
Mhm.
paying us until we delivered the
Mm.
full order, right? So you can imagine if you have a manufacturing glitch, we can't
Oh,
go back to them and say, "Hey, can you give us some more money to rerun this product that we messed up?" Um, and so, I was lucky enough to have a couple of factory owners in China. That's at the time where we were manufacturing, kind of taking me under their wing, and I went there, and they taught me a lot, and it was just really enlightening because we were making simple products, right? Like some of our bags were more complicated, but still a bag.
yeah.
And even those were just like I won't get into the details, but they were just hard. That stuff would just go wrong, like a lot.
Mhm.
So so anyway, fast forward, I was asked to start like teaching and talking about this, and I was getting a little burnout at the time. So I put up this class on Skillshare. Do you remember
Mhm.
Skillshare?
Oh
So
yeah, absolutely.
okay. So I was the first, I think, global class they did. And it just like blew up. Like all these people joined, like thousands of people wanted to know about it. And I really loved doing it. And so that's kind of how I transitioned into doing the product accelerator stuff.
Wow. That is so cool. I want to go back though. Like you make it sound so simple. Like, oh, I found a manufacturer, I stood up a website, and then it took off with search. Like, how big was like your first inventory buy? Did you know to go B2B
Thousand.
first or B2C first?
No, we did B2C first and sold through everything.
Mm.
It
And
was
sorry to pause you there. How'd you sell through? People, you just built it and they came because of Google search?
So I used, we ordered 1,000 bags. We held like a launch party, and I was living in New York at the time. I went through my personal network, friends and family, and then yeah,
Mhm.
people started sharing it because like, again, it was new. There, like if you were eco conscious in any way,
Yeah.
people were into it because they just didn't exist.
Hmm.
So it wasn't hard to sell through those.
Nice. Yeah, yeah. So it sounds like you were scrappy in those early days to like will those to be sold, but then
Yeah.
it got very serious when the B2B order came in. Just they're like emailing you like, "Hey, we're Goldman Sachs,"
They
and we
would just email. Yeah, and I would be like, "Oh my god, they don't know who I am." And listen, I would, like, walk around to all the stores in town and, like, ask them to sell, like, I did all of that stuff
yeah,
that people do. Thank God I did it then, because I wouldn't do it that now. Can you imagine? Like, I just
right.
that's like a
You'd be
phase in
making
your
your
life.
kids with you. Actually, you could probably have a better close rate if you bring the kids. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, so yeah, they would just email and then we kind of figured it out. And I think I found one of our first factories. I found some bag somewhere and there was like I don't know what was on the inside of the bag. I was able to track down the manufacturer because I
hmm
found like a label from somewhere and it had
yeah.
like a name or a number or something on there. So that was my kind of initial foray. What
Yeah.
happens as you start, and I'm sure you see this with your company, as you start to get bigger, you'll be contacted by suppliers as well. So you
Mm.
start to get almost like recruited, right? So that would happen as we got bigger.
Oh, that's interesting. That makes a lot of sense, though. So, what did you do at the back? Did you end up selling it, or did
Hmm.
it like where did it go as you've kind of shifted to making
Yeah, I
you
mean,
into nearshore?
that was a long time ago. So it has since kind of dissolved. We ended up acquiring another small bag brand, and then that person helped kind of run it for a bit, and then it just kind of dissolved over time. We just stopped accepting
Yeah,
orders. I was so like busy with other things that it kind of
yeah.
started to feel like smaller potatoes compared to what I was starting to do. So
Yeah.
I
No, I mean, it really showed that like you wanted to follow your passion and where you get energy as well with what you did with Maker U and now Nearshore. And talk about that journey because even before Nearshore, you were kind of running your own business that honestly looked like a really nice business model. You're kind of this one person operation. You can charge really high premiums to give people advice to build products. And I know how good you are at it because we were fortunate enough to then help those people build websites and grow. And literally everybody loved Liz. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, I couldn't have done it without her. And so I was always just blown away by that. But talk about that lifestyle, having a really nice business, but now you're kind of going big with Nearshore and what you guys are doing. And like, what was the
yeah.
decision to go big?
Yeah, I don't have the same lifestyle balance I have now, or I had. So, I think I have not done this intentionally in any way, but I think there's something about, you talked about trends, right? Like, I've kind of been lucky enough to be ahead of the curve in things. And one of the reasons we kind of dissolved the bag business is there was a million other options by that point. They could go like
Mhm.
it just we didn't have the same novelty effect, and so it was harder.
Yeah.
And so that kind of naturally went. You maybe could argue the same about advice, and like there wasn't when I first started doing the accelerator. They'll never it will never replace the need for a human touch. But when I first started helping brands launch, so what we essentially said was like, if you have an idea for a product or you're already selling, come to us. We will help connect you with people all over the world. We built this like amazing network of manufacturers, really just all around the world, great people like you, and also helping them avoid mistakes, right? So we were helping on the whole like launch journey, and um, yeah, that was incredible. Um, and then now, kind of what we're doing with Nearshore is, I was actually approached by two other tech founders to kind of get ahead of this nearshoring movement, right? There's pressure on supply chains. It's been very concentrated in certain parts of the world, and now there's more of a kind of diversification happening. And so we raised money a year ago.
Mhm.
Now you've seen everything in the news right now. If you're watching this with like tariffs and everything happening, we didn't necessarily anticipate that. That
Mhm.
just happened, but we did see that there was a trend. And when I first started the accelerator, there wasn't really anyone talking about it. So I just saw like, oh, there's
Mhm.
options here. I saw that more people were starting Shopify stores. When I started that 10 years ago, it was just, again, more of like a growing trend. So I think that has just happened naturally. And then one thing has led me to the next. Nearshore is definitely a big endeavor, right? So we are
Mhm.
trying to connect the supply chains of all of the Americas, all of Latin America, the USA, Canada, like Europe also, to give people kind of nearshored supply chain options. So it's a big project.
Yeah, no, it's super exciting and it makes a lot of sense. I see it with our clients and even with neat people diversifying away from China and other places to manufacture. And give more context on where you guys are at right now. Like, how much did you raise, and what are like the short term and long term goals?
Yeah, so I can give you a few of our numbers. So we have over 3,000 suppliers on the
Wow,
platform so far, and we've done that in a year, which I'm really proud of.
that's a lot.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And so we have over 52 categories. So you can come and find like medical devices, you can find footwear, you can find candles. I don't know, pick your product. We're just adding food and beverage now because we were having a lot of requests. So that growth has been really exciting. We had our public launch recently in April, and the RFQ volume, so the requests for quotes for brands, are just every day it's increasing. So it's people want it, right? People are curious and they want to see kind of what options exist.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so, what about for you personally? Like, kind of going from the, own 100% of your own business to this, where you're raising money, and it's like a bigger kind of milestone you're going for. What was the thought process in making the jump or the switch?
So Tanya, our CEO, we got together in San Francisco, and she said she had been thinking of starting this, focused on Mexico. She was kind of
Hmm.
thinking along those lines, and she said, "I always thought, if I did this, I'd want to do it with you."
Mm.
We had known each other like many years ago, and I was just an immediate yes. It's a little like woo woo, but I just got that like full body like yes, I'm so in. And my family and friends were all very surprised that I was so just willing to pivot.
Hmm.
It felt really right. I saw a huge opportunity. It also felt like I could take all of my knowledge and make more of an impact. So, you've seen me interact with the brands. I love helping brands. But the
Hmm.
other side of the equation is I've always loved help. I love sending factories business. Like they're entrepreneurs too.
Yeah.
I love them as a community. They're so hardworking. And so growing their businesses has always been just like really close to my heart. And I saw a huge opportunity to do that throughout Latin America. They're so undertapped, a lot of those
Hmm.
factories. We're dealing with factories who have like certifications and great operating systems and have never contracted for a US client. They just haven't. They've been dealing in neighboring countries and they're perfectly capable of it. So that is just exciting. And I also like traveling that part of the world. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
That's cool. What's did two other things that I think about is like who you do business with, right? It's like life short. It's like spending, it's all about relationships and family and friends and people that give you energy. Was that a part of it? Like being a part of a bigger team? And then another part, is it like, hey, we all have the same amount of hours in a day to work. If we're going to do something, let's do something that could have a big impact. I'm not trying to lead the witness here, because this is literally like things that I'm thinking through myself, and it's
Yeah.
fun to see you kind of make this shift.
It is. I'm glad you're asking about that because it is a big shift. And it has been a lot easier than I thought. I have a very special chemistry filled relationship with my co founders. I don't think you can control that, it just happens.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
And that is a real gift. We just make each other more creative, low to no conflict. Like, but we work hard. We use the word chill tense for our culture. So we're all kind of intense. Like if you know us, but we're also very chill. Like we're just kind of low ego, like easy to work with people all around. And so that has been a great blessing. And I was a lone wolf for a long time, and I always thought that's the way I liked it. And now I'm like, gosh, I couldn't go back.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah. The
Especially when you can find people that compliment you or like push you a little bit way to level up. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
they're smart. I'm like, you're on your best, you want to be firing on all cylinders. But the other thing that's more of a lifestyle thing is I had young children for much of the
Mhm.
past decade. I mean, I still do, but they're older and much more self-sufficient now. So I liked kind of being able to ebb and flow exactly how I wanted to in this last chapter. And for anyone listening who's a parent, like that, if you can do that during the young child years, I know everyone can't, but it's a real gift if you can. And now, I have a little more bandwidth to focus on work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all about like the phase that you're at, right? Yeah, because with
Mhm.
young kids, you can't just grind and pull all nighters. It's like they're still up at 6:30 a.m. and you got to make lunches.
Yeah,
At least
but the thing it does that it's been interesting. Like you get so good at getting so much done in a short amount of time that then I am working harder now and I am working longer now, but I'm really efficient, like way more than I was pre-children.
Yeah, and you don't sweat the small stuff. You know, like the impactful things to focus on, and you just like get right to it. At least I feel like that was my big shift as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's super exciting. Well, one last question. What is the nicest thing anyone's done for you in your professional career?
Well, I appreciated what you just said about everyone enjoying working with me. That was very nice. That's what
It
I always
happened
like to
just
hear
now.
that. Um, no, you know, I get messages like that from brands. I don't have one specific example, but I get regular messages from brands who are selling, who worked with me a few years ago, and they just like they remember the experience with such like so specifically and so fondly, and that just means a lot to me. I really love hearing that.
Yeah. That's so cool, especially at that phase where you just don't know what you don't know. You're looking for good people to help you. It's like catching the right book at the right phase of your life or career that just can make the difference.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
Very
and I
cool.
think you're like this too. Just being genuinely warm with people goes a long way. The world's a hard place, so I have always just tried to do that, and I guess it does make a difference in people's experience.
Yeah. Well, very cool. Well, Liz, where should we send people? One, if they want to learn more about, making their own product or expanding to new facilities, to have that backup plan that Neat should have done, or if they want to learn more about you, where can we send them?
Okay, so go to nearshored, so nearshored.ai. You can create a free account there. You can look at you can submit a free sourcing request, see if you get matched with a factory. It's very cool to do. That's probably the best place. I'm kind of active on Instagram, Jim, Liz R. Long. That's it. I'm not like, that's all I got. I don't have a lot of social channels. Yeah.
Yeah, your head's down, busy working. That's awesome. Well, Liz, I'm so glad this happened. We finally made it happen. It was fun to chat with you, and to these are always fun for me as someone I've been working with who's a friend to hear your story. That's so cool. So thank you for the time today.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to the Shopify Growth Show. If you found this helpful, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. It helps other Shopify founders like you find the show. Want more Shopify advice? Sign up to the Shopify Growth Insider newsletter by GrowthHit, where we break down the top 5 growth tactics every week. Remember, you're not in this alone. Building a Shopify brand is a grind, but you got this. Keep testing, keep scaling, and don't run out of larges on Black Friday like I did. Have a good one.